Hello and welcome to the 6 Plus show, a podcast for your wargaming and 40k needs. Hobby talk, tactics, tournament reports, lore and much more. We have it all. Please welcome your host for the evening, Tom.
Making quiet, so.
Nice.
Tom's best mate.
That's my nemesis there, that dog. He hates me. Even after I plied him with treats.
He's got the farts as well. It's horrible. He never has the
Hello,
farts.
Lincoln.
Yeah.
I see you, Lincoln.
Can you see him, Links? Get him.
Oh, he's cute. Sick me. Go on. Have at me. No, I'm not in his house, so I'm not an issue for him.
Yeah.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and Armature Helverins to that 6 Plus show. I am your host, Tom, and I am joined tonight by our dear leader, Chris. How are you doing, Chris?
I am very well, thank you, sir. Not bad at all.
What are you up to, Chris?
What I'm up to right now is building some Dire Avengers.
Dire Avengers! Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Old kits, the oldest aspect.
Yeah, there's like
are in
10
plastic.
pieces on these. It's great. But yeah, I've been thinking about moving over to some more conventional Eldari shenanigans.
The pointy ears.
And so going for a Hail of Doom list with a Twilight Patrol. So I might well try that. Could try some Ynnari, keep playing the Harlequins as well. That's kind of like the focus for the next couple of months, I reckon. See how that goes.
Excellent. Yeah, very nice. I'm playing into at least one of those tomorrow, right?
You are indeed.
I'm looking forward to it. Very much looking forward to it. But I'm not just joined by Chris. I'm also joined by the one and only Davey. How are you doing, Davey?
Oh, hello. How are we all doing? Lovely to see you all. I am good, yeah. Hello. It's obviously great to be on again. Things going good, man. Things going good.
Excellent. Anything new with you?
So really, obviously I had the RTT at the weekend, which went quite well.
Oh, yes. We'll be talking about that.
I was both at. Mm-hmm. And then very much looking forward to Faustus at the weekend for the first time ever running an army that isn't Tyranids in 40k for the first time in more than a year. So I'll be running CSM. So that'll be interesting.
Wow.
Reigning champions, right?
Which I found out after submitting. Lee was like, "Oh yeah, I won with Black Legion last year." I was like, "Oh, cool."
Yeah, cool. He did. They were a slightly different prospect last year, so don't feel any pressure to achieve the same results.
They were pre-Codex, right?
No, it had literally just come out.
Was it new Codex?
Just come out. So we hit that event with 4 CSM lists into a field that had never played against CSM before. So it was. Yeah, it was good. It was a violent time.
Very cool, very cool.
I'm
so
really
I've had to take a bit of a
that.
fluff list, though, so I've had to not take the optimal stuff. So instead of 10 Terminators, I've got 2 times 5 Terminators.
Oh, there you go. Okay, that's very restrained.
I've took the hit.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Faustus as well. I'm taking my Drakari. I haven't played my Drakari in ages. I've got a Tantalus in my list. Obviously, it has to be done. The hero's choice. So I think that should be really fun. Got sort of the whole army's a fleet, so it can all get in boats and all fly up the board really quickly. So it should be very nice. We've got a bunch of different armies. It's a team-based format narrative event, which is an interesting mix of things. Tempest of War cards.
It's all things I've never done before.
It's all things to all men, and it's going to be really fun. I was actually going to suggest we get John Scrivens on to talk about designing this event, possibly afterwards. For the next show, I think he was keen to chat about it. I think obviously you and I can talk about how it went as well, and tell him how rubbish we found it if we feel that way about it, which I'm confident we're not going to. So what we're going to do for tonight's show is it's a bit of everything really. We're in the sort of post LVO wash at the moment. We're going to do some listener mail because we've asked you guys for questions. We've got a bunch of questions off you through various channels, so we're going to try and answer those. We've got event recaps. We've got Davey's RTT from this weekend to recap. I'm going to very briefly rattle through my own RTT from a couple of weeks ago as well. Then we're going to think about the LVO, react to that, the end of Nephilim, and sort of some thoughts coming out of that. And then finally we will finish up with an update on channel plans more generally and what we're going to do going forwards. So without further ado, we'll jump into listener mail. Now, what we've got is a bunch of questions that you guys all sent in, so thank you very much for that. And I'm going to field some of the ones we got into Discord. Chris is going to take out some of the ones we got on the socials, and then across me, Davey, Chris, we will attempt to grapple with these and answer them. So obviously anyone can jump in at any time. Chris, do you want to kick us off?
Cool. So we got a question from Dark Techno Dom. Good old Mr. Dom.
Oh, Dark Techno Dom. Hello,
the
Dom.
best smiling 40k.
Yeah.
He is the most beautiful grin. Loveliest grin.
2 questions. So the first one, where do demons fit in a more aggressive shooting meta? Will the big monsters be around?
Oh, that's a very good question.
I mean, from a Tyranid point of view, right? From a Tyranid point of view, big monsters kind of our thing, right?
Yeah.
Did you say demons? You said demons, though, right?
Yes, you said demons
in the meta.
So so I know that from our point of view, it's a lot more risky taking them because a lot of high damage, a lot of AP, right?
Yeah.
Even AP1 does a great deal, and that's now in the meta, so there's going to be more of that flying into things. And obviously, death by a million cuts is also a way for a big monster to die. So when I think about demons, obviously shooting, not so much, but there's going to be a bit of a movement towards hordes, a little bit. There's going to be more Space Marine bodies that potentially have chainswords, potentially have -1 knives, is what the Incursors have, right? So, there's just going to be a lot more bodies flying forward on the battlefield. And I think that that's not a good thing for large demon monsters.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the shooting risk is very real. I think demons have a big advantage in their delivery systems, which are amazing. So demons can deep strike, demons can come in from leadership-based shenanigans, and demons can teleport out from big ruins. So they have a lot of ways to get into people's faces without needing to risk being out in the open. I think we'd already seen that only 1 or 2 big monsters is necessarily the way, maybe 3, not more than that. And for pure demons, flamers are still going to be great, either via getting rerolls from Bellicor or through running Zinch and getting the +1 to hit to basically mean they're still on a really nasty output. And flamers themselves are actually going to be better into a post Armor of Contempt meta in terms of the saves. So demons had good game into stuff like Tau, which was already a shooting threat. They had good game into stuff like Knights, which was a shooting threat. Marines bring unique problems, so infiltrators and Auspex scam. That's not so straightforward for demons. So I think they're in quite a similar place in some ways to my own GSC, which is they have good ways of delivering stuff, and it's just whether the Marine toolkit ends up being too effective at shutting them down and keeping them out, I think. But certainly you're not just going to run up the board, are you, with your monsters?
No. I mean, I played Lee with the new demons in Arxbox, and that was a really interesting game because I think he only had 2 monsters. And it's not because the monsters are bad, it's because the troops got better, right?
Yeah.
And being able to just put them in, obviously I've got no Auspex scan or anything like that, but it was really, to have that many bodies come at you is really kind of difficult to deal with.
Definitely.
Deep strike. Even into Marines, if you can avoid that Overwatch or avoid the Auspex scan with 20 Demonettes just running at you is very strong. But I'm sure there's ways, depending on which terrain layout you're on. If you're on UKTC, I think there'll be plenty of ways to get around this. But,
yeah, I think so.
Player-based or player-placed, rather, or even GW terrain will not be friendly towards this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they did better at LVO than people thought they were going to do. People weren't expecting 2 demons in the top 8. They are an army, I think, that still requires very good play to use right, but asks quite unusual questions. And there's probably still quite a lot of strength in that.
All 3 had 3 demons, big demons, right?
Yeah, they did.
They all had Scarbrand, right?
They did. Yes, I think so.
What?
Yeah. Hey, Lee was really hot on Scarbrand when the book first came out. That Nanovarty list very much did a lot of the things Demon players were keen on when it first came out with the Chicken and the Bloodthirster and Scarbrand. So yeah, it can definitely be done. Alrighty. I will now pull one off the Discord. So we have Paint Celestine, who said, "Hi, I love listening to the podcast. I'm curious, though, with Marines being seen as the top army, what do we predict will be the new style of gameplay? Do we think it's going to be a shooting war? Will it still be melee focused with objectives? What do we think will position well into Marines?" Well, Chris, what are you building?
Things that are quite good at killing Marines.
Yes, sir. It's elf season. Oh, yes.
And I think if you think, it's really hard to know, right? So we're obviously all predicting Marines, and there are going to be a lot of Marines around. And if you think the general approach is going to be a lot of stuff coming up from strategic reserve, and then boom, boom, boom. So that promotes like a lot of interesting things. So I think if you've got armies that can move really quickly around the board and kind of like relocate and hit the points where they need to be, and not so someone like Votan, for example, might well struggle because they're kind of like a sitting duck, whereas the idea of the Eldar who can be hidden and then get really far away quite quickly and deliver those blows, like especially all at once. You take a Hail of Doom list and especially if you build it towards more of a trade PC kind of thing, I think it could just be really hard to respond to. So I think that's shooty is quite often king at certain points, isn't it? Like the most oppressive metas we've had.
I'd argue. I think shooting has been king since AdMech came out, with a couple of brief interludes. Right? I think most of this edition has been shooting.
Yeah, when the meta's balanced, you've got good combat armies out there, and they can kind of cause problems for the shooting armies. But when it's been broken, it's never been a combat army, I don't think, that's done the breaking. It's always just been shooting armies that have done the breaking. So it'll be interesting to see if that kind of comes about. But
it does feel gunny, doesn't it? It feels like we're going to see a lot of guns, a lot of alpha strikes. So anything that can mitigate alpha strikes or can hit hard on its own terms is always a good bet into Marines. Elves tend to thrive when Marines are thriving, usually. Craftworlds especially are always at their best when there's lots of power armor out there for them to hunt. And now that Armor of Contempt is gone, they actually can do that properly again.
But conversely, let's not forget Guard exists, and Guard is really good.
It's gonna hurt elves so hard. Mortars. Just how much of a Hail of Doom army do you lose to mortars in your first turn?
Well,
that is horrific, isn't it?
Absolutely horrendous.
It is ridiculous that elves have been alive since before mankind, almost like before mankind. Yet can't deal with a big lump coming from the sky. It must be like they're not like they could have invented the metal umbrella, for example.
Yeah.
They have not.
I think the focus on objective play, incidentally, because that was the second part of your question, Paint Celestine, definitely is going to stay. And combat over objectives is still going to be crucial. I think of those earlier Iron Hands list, the Nassim style, right, where you had your little smattering of sort of Van Vets or something in there to just go and do the little bit of grunt work on the objectives. But the Marine sticky objectives is also going to be spicy, because I think you're going to go into games where you're going to, especially if you go second, you're going to start with all the non-home objectives tagged, a bunch of Marines hidden, and a bunch of guns waiting for you. And that's quite an interesting position to be in. And I think Marine players will evolve a bit like Guard players. I think are going to evolve to have enough tech in the list to draw you out into the guns, because smart players are not just going to walk into the shooting. But the objective game is complicated massively by the sticky objectives that Marines now have. So forward deploy is huge, absolutely huge.
Well, yeah, I totally agree. I think one of the things that's quite interesting is, so if the meta is going to be shooty, a lot of players like myself will think, well, how do I not get shot? So then you start to look at things like small footprints. How do I, especially with UKTC terrain, which is great, by the way, like, how can I've got a set at home, and the first thing I think about after I built a list is, can I fit all this behind all this terrain and not get shot turn one? I mean, unless I'm playing Ravenwing, which, well, good luck, right? But against Iron Hands, against Guard, etc., like, is there enough here that I can hide stuff, put stuff in reserve that's actually going to be a threat?
Yep.
So I think that then lends itself to passive play, right? So how can I not get shot, and how can I still score points? So then it's, how do I make banners as good as possible? Can I doing behind enemy lines without really risking anything of importance? Can I do what ritual without risking anything of importance? Like how Eldari do it. Or T-Suns. So there's some interesting things there. And I think genuinely it's going to move towards passive play.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think so. That's the other way forwards, isn't it? If you're not able to win the shooting war, you have to score around that.
And therefore less 100s, right?
Maybe less 100s.
Maybe. I mean, maybe. We'll except against Ravenwing.
We'll see. Yeah, I was going to say, I think there's definitely some high 90 scoring armies out there. That will be a big thing in the meta, though. I think which armies can put up those high scores, because that always shapes who actually places high. Thanks very much for the question, Paint Celestine. Hopefully that gives you some food for thought. Chris, next question from you.
It's Dom again.
Dark Turner Tom, back again.
He's back again. Quins aren't dead. I think Quins are more killy behind enemy lines is better for them. Thoughts?
Yes.
Absolutely right. They're still very, very good. They're still very, very good.
I've played 1, 2, 3, 4 games now of Arcs. And obviously, so you think about what's changed. We knew they were S tier. So what's changed about them? Well, the main thing is obviously the invuln. And we always said all along, like, if you play like a perfect game with the Harlequins, the stuff that dies was going to die anyway. So where it got frustrating for your opponent or that sort of thing was when the 4-ups just covered up for your mistakes. You know, you've got some armies which can afford to make positional mistakes because they're very resilient, and Harlequins didn't have that, but they had just enough skew with the minuses to hit, the lack of rerolls, and the 4-up invuln, and maybe -1 to wound sometimes. Just enough skew that you could survive more often than your opponent planned on. That's now completely gone. You pick something out, it dies. Okay, I can just tell you this because I've tried being aggressive just to see how it played, and you just get smashed. So I think now they are definitely farmed much more into that play style of you can't afford any positional mistakes. What you go to kill has to die. So I think therefore it's going to be a bit more of a cutthroat army. But in terms of are they more killy? Yes, absolutely, because Armor of Contempt's gone, which means Shuriken's good. Unless it's going into 50 Terminators with Storm Shields, then it doesn't really do very much, as I found out the other day. And, you know, their combat at -2 now puts Marines on a 5-up rather than a 4-up and stuff. Behind enemy lines is obviously the new Stranglehold, I imagine, for most armies. And Quins are just going to love it. So, you know, that's... but they were scoring it.
They were already great, weren't they?
Very rarely did you not get a 15 on it as a Harlequins player. Maybe a 14. Unless you got smashed. So... that kind of doesn't matter too much, but obviously the fact that you only need to put 1 unit in now is nice. It helps you. But I think the fact that it's core only into the deployment zone for deadly performance, I think that kind of probably balances up the behind enemy lines improving. So yeah, I think if you play Harlequins well, I think the problem is you're just going to have to lean much more into very all the discussions on the other discords I'm on and groups and stuff, all the discussions is based around 7 and 8 boats. It's just maybe varying characters and that sort of thing. I hate to alarm you all, but I have just built a list with 2 Troop Masters in.
Double Troop Master?
Double Troop Master.
Okay. And so what, you send them both in at the same time to do one job?
No, yeah. I mean, that's what would have to happen. No, I'm going to get doubly disappointed.
Nice. Yeah.
No, one with Fit and Future and Chegarat's Rose to go punch something rerolls, one with the Twilight Fang and Wounding on 2s as a late game piece just to go pick up some things.
Oh yeah, of course, because you just want to hold that, don't you, to the end game? So the
And
extra
I am also just considering removing the second Shadow Seer because I'm not sure how often I'm now going to be taking Weavale. I'm not sure whether it's because now that it goes off on an 8 on the final cast, just feels like it's probably going to be a 12 and sometimes it's going to be a 9. And with 8 troops and 7 in boats, I can kind of guarantee a 12 on R&D.
Yeah.
Like by playing a passive game. And sometimes I can choose banners on 2 or 3 of the missions. So yeah, I'm thinking maybe drop a Shadow Seer, and that would enable me to have an extra 2 bikes in, so I could have 2 units of bikes rather than 1 unit of bikes. So it's all those little things I think which will just come with a bit of play testing. But
yeah, absolutely.
Gwyn's are absolutely not dead. You're just going to see them less on the table because they're a bit more one-dimensional, and I'm not sure how much fun they're going to be playing. I mean, I've been playing.
I think that's a big thing.
I've tried them. I've played like 80 something games with them now, and I've played a lot of different styles of lists. But now we're going towards this very mono data sheet style, and it might, especially if UKTC terrain being the same every time. A lot of your games are going to go the same way, and that's why I'm looking at other stuff because Harlequins punch reasonably hard in combat, but they're not amazing. They can shoot quite hard if you put a load of stuff into certain parts of the army, but they don't have that overwhelming firepower. So it'd be quite nice to try some different things, really.
Yeah. And I think in line with that, I think elves and Eldari players in general are a bit of a herd, much like other particular sort of clusters of factions are, and I think Craft Worlds are going to come out of this in the nicest spot, which means I think we'll see a lot more Craft Worlds than Harlequins, because it just tends to be that player base can only be in so many places at once, and if Craft Worlds have got more play and are more interesting, more dynamic, which I think they're probably going to be, that might well be where a lot of our former Harlequins players end up, and rightly so. Very nice, thank you, Dom. Back to Discord, and we've got a question from Run Predictable, who says, big fan of the podcast, grateful for all the work that goes into them. Oh, so much work. We just put so much work in, don't we?
I mean, Chris has to ask all these questions.
Chris puts in work. I literally talk about stuff I was going to talk about anyway, and it just happens that we get some viewers out of it, so that's nice. So he's got a couple of questions, if that is okay. One, Tom, you've been going 4-1 at events recently and performing well, by the sounds of it. I didn't write this, I promise. What would it take for you to push 5-0 instead? Yeah, imagine my mum talking about 4-1s. That'd be great. What would it take for you to push 5-0 instead? Is it practice, list design, mindset, or a combination of factors? And then same question to Chris and Davey. That's an interesting question, isn't it? To push 5-0. So I've won 5 games at an event about twice. And I've won all games at smaller events a couple of times as well. And typically, it's a bit of luck. It's a bit of being in good form, which for me means understanding a lot of the armies in the meta at a given time and how I interact with them. I actually think that's what form tends to actually be for a 40k player, right? There's not that many surprises. You know your matchups well. You're feeling good about different matchups and what you're supposed to do in them. And then it's being on an army that's strong and got good tools into that meta as well. Play level, I think, is reasonably consistent. I've played pretty much to the same standard across 9th, and I've been on better armies and in slightly better form a few times, and then slightly weaker armies and slightly out of form and out of awareness of the meta a few times, and the results have kind of ebbed and flowed accordingly. So I think those are the big things. Definitely for myself, I am very prone to getting bored of concepts and or not just wanting to do what the obvious thing is, which just straight up holds me back from performing well at times because it's a stupid, petty and unnecessary viewpoint to take into competing, I think. But I always like to try and do something to keep myself interested, which at times works and at times doesn't. But I am trying to be a bit better this year and be a bit more focused and ruthless was the goal. How about you guys?
Go for it, Davey.
Oh, right. I was pointing at you to go next. I mean, for me, I'm very early on my 40k kind of competitive journey, really. Like, only really been trying to do well for about 9 months and a bit more. I think, like, when I look at like what I speak to Tom quite a lot about this, like what do I need to be doing differently? How am I doing, and then I play Tom and we'll have good games and stuff. But the way that Tom looks at things is just a different level to the way I do. And I think it's just understanding what, to an extent, how really seasoned players kind of just see things slightly differently. And I think there's a bit of that. I also think there is a little bit of understanding who you are as a person, right? And understanding how your brain works. So I, in a past life, and I will say this very, very strongly, did stand-up comedy for 10 years. And I was friends with stand-up comedians who could just go up on stage and just make the room laugh, like instantly. They didn't even need to prepare.
Yeah.
I was not one of those comedians. I would go on with very well-prepared material and perform that way. Things that I would rehearse, things that were like almost set in stone, to the fact that if I got torn off with a heckler or anything like that, I could always jump back into it and I wouldn't even miss a beat. That's who I need to be in 40K. I need to be super prepared.
Well drilled.
Absolutely. So there's a comedian I really like called Anthony Jeselnik in America. Go and watch him. He's very funny if you like dark comedy. And one of the things he says is that he writes, his goal is to write more jokes than anyone else. Because if he does that, he's going to end up with more better jokes. And I think that's the requirement that I need. So you'll see me playing games and RTDs very often because I feel like the talent isn't there necessarily, but if I put the hard work in, I'll catch up.
And hard work does beat talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Absolutely. And then the very last thing really is just not putting pressure on yourself too much to go and get it. Because as Tom says, you've got to love the game. And if all of a sudden you're losing that kind of feel, that vibe for it, you're never going to become a great player if you don't love it.
Yeah,
and
100%.
It's managing love and growth at the same time.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think a lot of what you're talking about in terms of how you see the game and game state and stuff, and this is something Chris is actually very, very good at, is muscle memory on one level. It's just layers of practice and experience. So all those reps you're doing help get you to that point. I found that an edition reset was actually massive, and I think you'll find the same thing, because when you go into a new edition and from the start you have all that accrued experience and practice at just getting to the root of what you need from the game. It's much easier. and starting from the very beginning means you can layer it up as you go as well, whereas obviously that's not as possible otherwise.
100%.
How about you, Chris?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I feel like I've been playing since 8th, so I've been playing for 5-6 years now. I've done the hard yards, I've watched all the videos, I know all the tricks and the combat and that sort of thing. I think sometimes when you know all the little pieces, it can be a bit of an overload to be trying to pick out the right thing to use at the right time. I know that when I play these sorts of games, I'm a massive overthinker. I used to play chess at a pretty decent level when I was kind of school age. And just like when you're computing all the different options and all those sorts of things, and it can definitely become quite what do I do now? So for me, it's actually having an army that fits my style. I think because I, for example, wouldn't want an arm. So I tried GSC like in 8th edition, and it wasn't for me because I had so many options. I remember going to a tournament where I had 35 units, and like, all right, which ones am I going to deploy and where? Which ones are coming in turn 2? Which ones are coming in turn 3?
Yeah.
And when you're trying to work out like the optimum way, I couldn't do it. Like I just didn't have that gut. And it was the same bit of chess. So when I got into chess, I got really into openings. That was my thing. So I would open loads of books about learning different openings and that sort of thing. And I just kind of memorize them. And I guess maybe the understanding wasn't there, but I could still hold my own at quite a high level just because I knew kind of the expectations. And in terms of 40K, I think I'm at the level now where sometimes I can probably get a bit too involved into the micro kind of level of things rather than stepping back and just seeing the big picture to score the points over the course of the game. I can think about all these little clever little plays and that, but is it contributing to the overall picture? Not so much. And throw in there that about once a tournament, I like to do something really, really stupid. That's quite a thing. I just like to do it. Just feel like it. Let's just do something. Let's just forget about the things that I've been really focusing on. Let's just do something stupid and lose a game. And that does happen sometimes. So
in recent times, you've been playing armies where those kind of mistakes really hurt as well. To be fair, you've been on some quite tough, unforgiving armies in that sense.
Yeah, so I think for me to move forward, I've won a few events, I've had a few 5-0s and stuff, but also I've had some 2-3s. Like there's just not that consistency there. I think for me, a big push that I want to do at the moment is play more, because the last few months I've only been playing in tournaments and not been practicing. And that's also just being more prepared. And I am a bit like you, Davey, in terms of that. Like I like to be prepared for things. So for me, in a perfect world, relating to my chess, if I know I'm going to UKTC event and I know how I'm going to deploy in each mission, and I know the optimum way of moving my Harlequin boats from this one to get into your deployment zone, and these are the optimum angles, if I can do those things, then I will feel really confident. And on top of that, if I've played a matchup before, I learn a lot from it going into it a second time. And I'm not perhaps as good as thinking on my feet as some people, but once I've played a game, I'm quite good at learning from it. So I think for me, pushing forward is definitely going to be an improvement in preparation. And it depends, like how far you want to go. Right, you're trying to compete against people who are living off TTS. And I just mapping out angles and all those different things. And we're not up for that. We are just playing a game that we want to enjoy. And
if we have a limit, we've discussed it. If we have a limit, TTS is where certainly at the moment, me and Chris just draw the line. I just don't care enough about it to want to sit at home on the computer playing it. I really don't. I want to play Jurassic Park Evolution 2 when I'm sitting at home on the computer. I absolutely do not want to be on TTS playing a shitter version of a game I like playing in person with real humans.
It depends like what you want to get out of it, right? And
of course, and it's so useful. It's clearly so useful because so many players in the top of the UK scene have broken through on it. But it's just I feel like I make good headway in person, and I'm happy enough with that. That was one other thing that's worth saying is we have such an asset in 6++ now compared to how it was. Like we've got a really strong suite of players in there and really keen, talkative people who are interested in discussing the game, some really good minds. I feel like almost everybody that I've had a really good, demanding and interesting and enjoyable game with has ended up in that team over the last few months. And that's a really nice place to be because it means all those people that I learned so much from and I'm challenged so much by are now on my side or available as regular players, and I think that's where the team plays a massive role. So I think that will be what develops our whole squad more than anything else is the team we've now built. And on that side of things, I'm very optimistic that I think the next couple of years are going to be really good.
Yeah, I just had one last thing to this answer is you need a good run as well, right? Like
you do.
So to go 3-2 to 4-1, sometimes it's just you didn't draw
it's always about the matchups and the luck. Always. And the mission and the timing and who went first and all these things. Hugely so.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do, right? And that's why again, don't if you are getting the 3-2, if you are getting the 2-3, don't beat yourself up like it's
no.
There's so much stuff you can't control, and just say to yourself, well, if I'd have drawn X matchup 4 times in a row, then it would have been great.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just got to laugh and just say, well, this is it. I think Dave's a great example, right? With his Grey Knights.
Oh yeah. So he had a horrible run and then he had a great run.
4 horrible runs, then he had an amazing run. So it swings and roundabouts.
No, completely. Yeah, and that is the thing. And I think there's a danger, and I see it all the time in our communities at the moment. There's a danger in thinking of yourself as a player who does X or achieves Y, and I know some very prominent players who have a very pronounced sense of what they should be achieving. And it's a recipe for being very unhappy and very grumpy when it doesn't happen, and you see it all the time. And it produces some quite unpleasant behaviour in some circles. It produces some quite unsporting behaviour in some circles. And I like to think, I think this is an ethic that Chris very much sets from the top down. Is our team is about playing well and being a good sport every game, and making sure we do that. And then the rest is not, specific outcomes are not as important as that. And I will never. I'm not ever going to change that. I don't think, or move away from that. Right, there was a second part to Run Predictable's question, and it was, what would you say are each other's competitive strengths and weaknesses? This is quite funny. Do we want to each do one of the others in terms of?
I've never played Chris, Davey. I don't know.
Yeah, I've never played Davey.
Well, I can say for Davey. No, that wouldn't work. You've not played each other, have you? So this doesn't work. But we can.
It's a difficult one.
Nonetheless,
I hear he's an amazing opponent.
Shall we say for ourselves, and then we can cross-reference, or
yeah?
What do you reckon?
Yeah, sounds good.
Go on, Davey. You can.
Oh,
Davey, why are you
doing myself?
Right,
yeah.
What are you good at, Davey?
Well, I think there's two parts. Probably too nice to my opponent, too hard on myself.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah,
it's one of the key things.
Far too hard on yourself. Yep.
Yeah. So, and by hard on yourself, it doesn't mean I go in going, "Oh, I'm rubbish" or blah blah blah.
No. It's like hyper sporting. It's like yeah.
This is the thing. I've got this inbuilt kind of like I need it's and it comes from also the stand up, right? You want people to like you more than you want to be good, and that's an issue. And of course, it's great to be liked. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, if you're giving away things that you really shouldn't, like you're just shooting yourself in the foot. And then I've got this ability to not shut up during my opponent's turn and go, well, if you do that, then that'll be like that. Oh yeah, cool. I can score 4 points then. Yeah, sweet. And then losing by 2 points.
That's a good thing as well. Like I've watched enough streams of the absolute top tier players, and they do that as well. Like because there's this almost given that they both know the optimum thing. Like we'll talk about LVO later, but watching the Harpster Porter game,
good.
And Porter was like, well, you could do that, but I would then just emergency disembark onto that objective and get a 12 on it. And Jack was like, oh yeah, okay, I won't charge it, and just took back the charge he just rolled.
Yeah.
And it's just stuff like that. Like they do it all the time, and it's
quite
they
remarkable.
want to win based on the best game possible rather than
exactly.
Things.
But at top level, I agree with that. But
the middle level,
if I'm playing at the middle level or playing someone who's new, etc., and then explaining that to them, they might learn it.
People aren't always able to reciprocate. That's the thing. People don't always have that level of engagement to reciprocate.
There's that, which obviously would be nice, but also, are they going to learn from me telling them or them making the mistake? And I think I think there's a bit of both, right? So I don't know. I think that I think I hit a good medium at this weekend anyway, but that's probably my big thing in terms of was it weaknesses and strengths?
Weaknesses and strengths, yeah.
What's my competitive strength? I think relentlessness.
Yeah.
Just keep playing, just keep going, keep playing games, keep going to tournaments, try and learn as much as you can.
Yeah, very much so. Cool. I'll go next. I think I'm generally very good at knowing what my opponent wants to do and how their army works, because I've got a brain full of words and information, so I can usually have lots and lots and lots of armies and their rules tucked away in my head, and stratagems, combos, all that stuff, which when it works, it means I'm quite good at mapping how the two armies interact. I think I'm quite good at damaging things like units, like knowing what you need to do to get rid of X, Y, and Z, and quite good at writing lists that will score effectively. I don't think I have great overall game state analysis. I always find I'm trying to get just like a big blob of chunks ahead in a game because I don't really know how a game plays out at the end, and sometimes I'm quite over eager and try and do too much, try and affect too much of the board, play for too much of the board, try and make too many things happen at once, and often lose games that way because I blow out because I've tried to be in all places at once. Because I'm a bit greedy, see too many possibilities on the board and then try and act on all of them at once, which in ninth can go really badly. I think those are probably my main ones.
Well, that's fair. I think, like we played a game recently where you just nailed in on the fact that the only way I score points is with X unit, and you just went, right, they're dead. That's the number one priority, and it's a priority that no one else I've played with this list has picked out. So So while game state, it's kind of game state, but in reality, it's more spotting the strengths and weaknesses, and as you say, combos within there.
Yeah. I definitely like. I think I'm good at knowing what will make an opponent's plan break down, right? And doing that. That's definitely good. How about you, Chris?
I guess I kind of spoke about it already. I think I have a pretty good knowledge of all the things that you can do, like in the game, like all the fancy tricks and that sort of thing. And I think I'm quite good at reflecting. It's probably part of the job, like when you train to be a teacher, it's hammered into you about reflecting on your practice all the time. And my degree was philosophy, and like all those sorts of things just mean I'm a massive overthinker. So I like to go through the games and reflect. So it means I think I'm probably quite good at identifying where it went right or wrong, and then when it went right, still finding those things. So I guess from that I can learn reasonably well. But in terms of mistakes, I think I can probably get into, or weaknesses, I get into quite a specific way of playing. And I'm like, this is the way I've got to play this game. And I would then just be like trying to force that tactic home rather than changing it depending on the scenario and that sort of thing. I'm like, no, this is the method that works. I need to make this method work rather than... so like, for example, when I played that Italian sisters player at the final game of Nottingham, I was like, right, I play this way and I win by 1 point and I'm going to stick to this way, when actually he was like, well, you should just put 6 boats here, 6 boats here, shot, 6 boats here. There's a big 6 boat blob, and I would never in a million years take that risk. I would need to play that in like lots of practice games and really get to grips with that method. I've put, as I said, like so many games into Harlequins. I've got a method which has success when when I don't make silly mistakes. And so I think I can probably get set into a certain way of playing. Like, our game, Tom, obviously. And we played, I should have just dumped everything. And, I played Paul Sunday. And
that was a game where I very much just gambled on you playing the way you like to play.
Exactly. And I played Paul on Sunday into his Deathwing. And I found myself like trying to be more aggressive. But again, I just hadn't gone all in enough on one side. And I was like doing these bit part all-ins on either side, and it just wasn't quite enough.
I do that all the time as well. Yeah, and sort of two flanks not quite doing it.
Yeah, having that cohesive plan about what you're going to do pre-game is obviously so important. So that's, I guess, what I was...
Yeah.
But Chris, I think it's fair to say, though, I think it's an admirable skill set to be able to turn one, no, I win by 1 point here.
Oh, it's that I just never have that. I never have that awareness.
Man, I would love to know that. I mean, I do try to look at this a little bit, but I tend to start thinking about it turn 3. Which is probably too late.
It depends massively on the game. So in that particular game, it was because of the secondaries and the primary, the mission and stuff. So obviously there's some games where I think it's
something that some very top players definitely have.
Yeah, and I think
very useful.
I'm trying to do it more and more early doors now. And the only way I don't think you just play and suddenly go, I've got enough experience now to know what the score's probably going to be from turn 3. I think every time you play, and this is something that maybe we should start doing in our practice, is being like talking through the game. Like, well, if you do this and you like, even if it's just each turn, well, what happens now if we just stay in our halves of the board? And just get into the habit of understanding each game you play in terms of, if I don't do anything, what happens? Yeah. And then you can kind of, because then it stops you from having to commit when you
Completely.
all those sorts of things. You know,
hark back to that game in LVO, right? They started to talk it out after turn 1, was it?
Yeah.
Like, well, stay there, bam, bam,
EJ
bam.
versus Hub, so they literally just chatted.
Very cool moment. And we were all sat on the Discord, just sitting there going, "Are they talking it out? This is insane." But hey, how else do you find out who needs to be proactive, right? It's just so clear and cut. Yeah, absolutely love it.
Absolutely. Great. That's a really interesting question. Thank you very much for that. Chris, have you got anything else from the socials?
I have one more. I have one from Getting Back into 40k, also known as Aaron.
Oh, it's Aaron.
And Aaron says, and this is a really
RTT winner, Aaron Wilson.
It's that Aaron Wilson.
The one and only Aaron Wilson.
The trophy hunter. 3-0 Wilson, that guy.
He says, if all armies were equal, what army would you collect?
Oh, that's cool.
Really
I think the ones I already do. None of them are in my.
You can only pick one. Only allowed one army.
Right, we're picking one.
All armies were equal. God, wouldn't that be a thing? Imagine that world.
I'm gonna say
orcs.
Sure. Orcs. Really?
Yeah, sure. It's very cool, man. And no squigs.
Explain it.
No squigs.
No squigs.
All like
killer cans, right? 18 killer cans.
Tanks that have been like orcized. All that stuff. I'll be into that.
It's a good range to choose because so much stuff. What about you, Chris?
There's so much conversion opportunity, right?
Oh yeah.
I guess if all armies equal, then it comes down to either play style or lore interest, right?
Yeah.
So.
And range to an extent, right? I always think having enough to keep you interested in a range is good.
Yeah, no, that's true. Because I was going to say Grey Knights because I love their lore.
Yeah, they are cool.
They're like my favourite army when they came out many moons ago. And, they've got quite an interesting style. But I guess it is still quite like there's not that many data sheets. So, I guess I'd then go Eldar currently just because they've got such a range of different ways of being played. But it doesn't feel like the right option. I don't feel like an Eldar.
No, I think Craftworld is a good option because it's got tons of different stuff within it, right? And it's an all 3 phases army.
I've always said Tyranids.
I was going to say I'm surprised Davey didn't pick Tyranids because I think Tyranids
they just cover all the bases, don't they? They do all the different aspects well, and that's why I bought a giant box of them, which is sat away somewhere for a future project. But they cover all of the bases. It's just alien. I've never been that into aliens, so I guess they don't have that like lore aspect of the hook for me. But as an army and a play style, they're cool.
I love Tyranids, but if I chose the army that I had, I'd be a right wanker, wouldn't I?
Yeah, that's fair enough.
That's fair enough. So I'd probably pick Drakari.
Speaking of wankers, I'm joking.
I like Drakari. I like the way they play. I like that sort of massive amount of damage, but very fragile vibe, and they're my favourite army that does that. And they've got some absolute combat blenders, lots and lots of speed, and they're the baddies. And they've got a really diverse set of it's 3 armies. You're collecting 3 armies. You got Coven, Witch Cult, Cabal. You've got lots going on, different colour schemes. They've kept me very entertained, and still keep me very entertained to this day. And
definitely my second pick as well, man. They're so cool.
They're so cool. They're just super good looking on the table. And loads of fun, and when it all comes together and you just put the complete shutdown on, it's very rewarding. So yeah, but I don't want to play Aaron's Tau with them anymore ever again. It's hard. It's really hard.
No one wants to play Aaron's Tau.
It's true. Right, we've got a handful of quite short questions from the Discord, then we're done. So Elmo Miniatures was curious to find out if Chris is as goddamn sexy as his voice suggests. Underneath that, please, he has a gun. Help. Chris is a very sexy man. You know it. We all know it. That's fine.
Love you,
and then Scrivo asks, how many kill rigs is enough, Daka?
What's the maximum you can take?
You can take 3.
3.
Oh, kill rigs. I was thinking killer cans. Kill rigs.
Kill rigs.
Yeah,
Well, I
three.
played
The
into
answer's
2
three,
and
right?
it was shit. So.
2 and a Squigoth is my answer, Scrivo, because you can field that already. Go and field that. Don't listen to the people who tell you the Squigoth's bad, mate. It's amazing. I love it. And then he's asked a sensible question because I think he wanted to. Do you guys feel that custom successor picks for Space Marines will change from current archetypes to better line up with Dev Doctrine styles? So that's an interesting question because obviously Marines score super well in Dev Doctrine now with whatever it is, Codex Warfare. Will people running custom successors want to take custom traits that sort of lean heavily into that? I mean, I guess what can you get? You can get extra range, can you? You can get like ignoring certain penalties.
I mean, those. I played a game on stream where the opponent took the extra range.
Yep.
So there is that there, and I think I think there is something to be said about that. Don't think it's the most powerful. Do you think White Scars? Do you think Blood Angels will take something like that? I don't necessarily think they would.
Whirlwind of Rage might still be a thing, I guess.
Yeah, I think the thing with the combat stuff, the exploding sixes, +1 to hit, etc., is that it often shores up melee for an army that's already very good at shooting. That was certainly what it did with Iron Hands. And it feels like Marines are going to be shooting just fine without extended range or anything like that. But they are still not, especially the non sort of Space Wolves or type factions or White Scars. They're not melee champions, combat champions. So I reckon some traits that amp them up in that regard probably still are really valuable to have.
Yeah.
I don't, but I mean, I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see if Marines players do move away from it. My instinct is that they're probably still going to benefit so much from getting some combat boost. But I've not actually seen a ton of the Marine lists just yet. And obviously, if you're Dark Angels, you don't want to be a successor chapter full stop, right? Because too much rides on being pure Dark Angels, and they're maybe actually the best ones.
Did I hallucinate this, or do you lose the ability to choose chapter secondaries if you go successor chapter?
I think. Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know if you lose chapter secondaries or not.
But I can't remember. But if that's the case, I think
that would be a big punishment, right?
It's a big punishment. I feel like that might be a thing, but I can't remember.
There was something about it. It definitely had some kind of caveat, didn't it, this time? So that'd be worth checking.
Some Marine chapters do have good secondaries.
Yeah, you just keep running your Ravenwing Scrivo, and you don't make them successors. You keep them pure Ravenwing. Scrivo has actually been running a very sort of alpha style Ravenwing list for the entirety of 9th edition, and it's now just been amped up to 11, which is quite terrifying. So very fearful to see what happens when that is out and about soon. Brilliant. Okay, well, I think that's all our questions, isn't it? So thank you very much to everyone who sent those in. That's been a lot of fun to do. Feel free to chuck more questions in Discord for next time, more questions on the socials. You can email us. All of the links to that will be on the video below, and it's a lot of fun to get into your questions. Great. Right, Davey, it's your time to shine. It's event recap time. Tell us about an event that you've recently done.
Yeah, so event recap. I was at the Outriders 2,000 point 40k GT at the weekend.
Okay.
It was 12 players. Was supposed to be 14, but unfortunately there was a dropout. But no, 12 players still, which was cool. I was originally drawn into Harlequin. Oh, but let me talk about the event. So the event at War Games Workshop in Milton Keynes. I think this club is a really good community. I've never found another shop like it so far. In terms of you can play pretty much any evening as long as you ask permission ahead of time. Staff are largely 40k orientated. They know everything about generally most things about the game. So there's always someone to help you there if you are new or even if you're experienced. There's tons of terrain available to choose from. I think one of the things that I would say about the event, however, is that because it uses a mixture of GW terrain and there's a bit of a mix, basically there's all sorts of terrain that they use. because you can't just have tons of terrain sitting around in the back. As a result, some tables are very light, other tables are sort of light, and occasionally they're medium. So it really does benefit shooting armies, is what I would say. In terms of food and things like that, they do food on site, which is good. There's even a Subway around the corner. There's a Mackey's, there's a Tesco. There's tons of options in terms of eating there. So if you are looking at playing over this way, I would recommend the Outriders. I would consider lighter terrain when you're building your list, is essentially top and bottom of it. So my list included so it's Arcs of Omen. So just to point out, it was all Arcs of Omen. My list was Tyranids because I'm still one of the poor souls trying to make it work. And yeah, basically the list was running really quickly through it is a Hive Tyrant, a Swarm Lord, the Swarm Lord's there to give buffs, Neurothrop, 3 times 15 Hormigans with Toxin Sacs, 3 Tyranid Warriors, 6 Gene Stealers, a Lictor, 2 squads of 3 Pyrovores, which are the Flamers, Tyrant Guard because you need your Tyrants to stay alive, and 2 Parasites, 1 squad of Ripper Swarms, and an Exocrine. So essentially, very and all under the umbrella of High Fleet Gorgon, which auto wounds on 4s and has the ability to it wounds on 4s always, except against vehicles and Titanic. But I do have the ability to auto wound on 5s for a CP. That's very much like a very quick breakdown of the list. If you have any questions about the list, give me a message or give me a question on the Discord.
Drop him a line.
Yeah, give me a line. No, Whoa, that took a turn. All right, so my games. I had 3 games. First up, I was drawn against Harlequins, so Tom and Chris kindly jumped on a call with me the night before to figure it all out before I was then drawn into Votan as the Harlequins player. Unfortunately, dropped kindly, so it was even numbers. That's Paul Hart, the Shark, as he's known around here, because he's an absolute shark. But he's a very good player. I was looking forward to the game. It would have been great to test myself against him. However, I was drawn against a lad called Lee, who brought his Votan. Really great game, really nice opponent. I got first turn and just hemmed him into his own half, and that was the game, essentially. It was on the scouring, so it was quite a difficult one to get out of his own deployment zone. I denied him primary turn 1, and it kind of fell down from there a little bit. Really happy that he said he learned a lot after the end of it. Like, again, as we said before, I tried to be a great opponent. I tried to be a nice opponent, and I feel like he came out of it saying, "Oh, mate, you were great." So I was dead chuffed with that. More so than the win, if I'm honest.
Absolutely.
I then drew into an army I was very interested to play, Grey Knights. So I don't have the psychic defense I had at the last GT that I went to. I've changed the list significantly since then. So I was against Grey Knights, so it was a little bit weak, a bit of a worry. Also with 3 Armiger with Helverins. So again, really not a worrisome game, but like, oh wow, this is going to be a difficult matchup. And this was on.
This is popping up, isn't it? This Helverins Grey Knights combo. This is something that's.
I suppose it does something that Grey Knights don't have, right? Grey Knights don't have a great deal of like high AP shooting, except for the Dread Knights.
Yeah.
So this chap didn't have any Dread Knights at all. He just had the Helverins, a massive chunk of Paladins. So there's 9 Paladins in a squad teleporting around, which was something I had to deal with. The Swarm Lord kindly did a bit of that for me. But yeah, so in this game, really, it was. I think I got first turn, if I remember rightly. I didn't really want first turn. I'd have been quite happy with him having first turn, but it kind of again came down to some poor secondary picks on his part. Took engage, which I can see why he did it, but it's just such a tough secondary to score with. It really is. Even when you're teleporting all over the place, sometimes you just go, right, I've got engage. Oh no, I'm in the middle of the board. Ugh. And it's just a sad face. Again, really nice guy, and again, kindly said he learnt loads off us, so I was really happy with that.
Oh, great.
So yeah, two good games there. And then, of course, having scored pretty well, like mid-80s in both games, I then got drew into the number 1 player at the tournament, the Tower Master himself, soon to be head war boss, Aaron Wilson.
Aaron Wilson, blimey.
6++ famous Aaron Wilson, who
horrible guy.
Horrible guy. No, he is. Aaron's a top guy.
He's an absolute babe.
Playing him. I think I've lost every game I've ever played against Aaron. Because he's always had his towel and he always just mullers us. But I went in with my head held high. I said, right, okay, let's see how we do this. And unfortunately, the low amount of terrain really bit me in the butt here. I even won the roll off and chose the side with the best terrain, but there was just no hiding what I was trying to do. I probably could have chose better secondaries too. So I think in the end, he got 93 to my 65, I want to say. But Aaron's, well-deserved winner. He's a great player. So really pleased for him. And, he genuinely probably the best player at the event. So really pleased for him. But yeah, overall, really enjoyed the event. Would recommend. But tailor your army to deal with very little terrain.
And you placed, right, as well?
Oh, yes, I came third. I was nearly second, so I was quite happy with that. But
yeah,
I came third.
Podium placed.
You should follow my Instagram. It's Swissley on Instagram. But I would say that, and I explained on that I had 8 warm-up games to this RTT because I really want to see if I can make Tyrannid still sing. I lost 7 of those warm-up games. I won 1 of them. But I was trying things out every game in terms of secondaries, in terms of missions, in terms of what I thought I was good at, what I thought I was bad at. And so I lost 7 out of 8 games running into the tournament, into the RTT, but then won 2 out of 3.
Yeah, so and placed. Yeah, exactly. It's a fantastic result.
A great advert, for learning, like what Chris has said, is like going finishing a game and then seeing what you could have done better, how you could have won, what is the route to victory for your army, and then taking it to a competitive event and then trying to do it. So big time. Like, don't take losing as you're not a loser because you lost. Yeah, you're a learner because you lost.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is the really wanky, sincere way of saying it.
It was in a context where in the last couple of weeks the win rate for Nids has been horrible. All the conversation around them has been negative, been doom and gloom, and you've had your whole team going, "Oh, Davey, do you want to do something else?" We're all trying to sort of guide you off onto something else. We're sort of worried, "Oh, I don't want Davey having a rough time," and then you put a whole week of practice in and take out a podium place, which is great, like absolutely fantastic. I think it's really, really cool.
Yeah, man, and even so, I'm very hyped on looking at other lists that do really well, and I saw a guy in the Czech Republic go 4-1. With the Tyrannid list as well. It was Behemoth, which...
Excellent.
Yeah, really pleased for him in terms of like, oh, wow, someone's making it work. So, yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough, but how much are you going to learn by switching armies and how much are you going to learn by actually trying to make something subpar work? And there's pros and cons to both, but at the moment I'm taking this angle.
No, definitely. And I will be I'm writing an article on navigating changes in faction power for Goonhammer at the moment, and I'm going to be using you as a case study, I reckon.
Oh, sick!
Because that's a lovely little story, which demonstrates exactly what can be done.
Well, I've got a GT in 2 weeks, Tom, so hold that article.
Oh,
I'll win that. I'll do an interview.
Take that out and come back, and I'll do an interview. Yeah, brilliant. No, really, really cool, man, and well done to Aaron as well. It was very, very nice. A rare weekend off for me. It was nice to see some photos coming in, and you lads sort of smiling with your trophies at the end was absolutely lovely.
Yeah, and also big high five to MK Outriders for providing trophies.
Yeah, it's great. Super sweet. Lovely prize support, right? Really nice.
And prize support in terms of models as well, right? So I got £25 worth of vouchers. So that was sweet.
Oh, amazing! Did you buy anything, or did you
save
them?
I bought.
What did you get?
Some Grots. Look at these bad boys. Here we go. I don't know what to make up though. I don't know what to make. Either stabbers or what they're called, stickers or stabbers. I don't know.
There you go. Magnetize all of them so you can choose.
Magnetize 20 Grots. Is that what you're telling me to do, Tom?
Yes.
Seems reasonable.
I'm messing. Yeah. I had an event a couple of weeks prior, which we'll just rattle through very, very quickly, it was a 1K incursion size event at Tabletop Republic in High Wycombe. Really, really fun. And this is my first Arcs of Omen event, and I've been playing GSC a lot, and I was a bit exhausted and a bit tired of that kind of, here's my castle, I'm going to get my points, can you stop me? So I was like, what is very different to that I can take for this? And I've been playing Crusade, and one of my Crusade armies is Flesh Tearers. And I was like, I reckon Flesh Tearers will be really fun for this, because yeeting Death Company into people turn 1 when it's 1,000 points is pretty dangerous, pretty scary. So I took a Flesh Tearers list. I had a couple of units of Death Company, one with Power Fist, one with Swords, some Sangard, Smash Captain, and Apothecary with some Assault Terminators, because they're good now. And 5 Plasma Inceptors as well, which was the sort of dirty bit of the list. Some very nasty, high-quality shooting dropping down. And they cost, at the time, a mere 200 points. They have since been nerfed again. So this was some dirty meta chasing on my part with the Plasma Inceptors. And I had 4 great games. My first round, I got absolutely destroyed by Thousand Suns. It was a really cool duplicity list, and he teleported all around me, got round in behind with the mortal wounds and the bolters. AP2 bolters really hurt Space Marines again now. And I had a moment where I went into his Exalted Sorcerer with my Death Company, and he just made 4 up saves for Dave's, and I bounced off. And at that point, I was in big trouble and got tabled very quickly. And then I had a game into Votan, where I just put the Votan really hard on the back foot from the get-go, threw Death Company into them, hid all my guys in the middle, and then just popped out and smashed him up. Inceptors came down, shot loads of stuff. And it was really difficult for him to get out. Although it is worth saying, one Berserk squad killed about 400 points of my guys anyway. Just went off and went on an absolute killing spree. It wasn't enough to turn the game, but blimey, they really do kill stuff. Then I had a game into my mate Adam's Tau, and this was a surreal game. So I'd played the only practice game I played for this, I played with Adam in the week before, and Adam beat me by a point. And he reckons it's the first time he's beaten me in like a match play game. I think he has won one other one before. I think he beat me in lockdown with his Blood Angels into Death Guard when we played like via a camera. But yeah, really good game. And his list just kills the shit out of mine. But I got quite a nice mission where there was like there's one of those secondary objectives you can do for the mission to get more primary by scanning objectives, and you get more the further up the field you are, basically. And Adam was playing for a big turn 2, turn 3 push, but I was able to sort of lock down a bunch of objectives and do a load of the scans whilst I was getting murdered to get just enough of a primary lead to win that very narrowly. But I had quite a lot of luck in that game. And then final round, I got 6 Armigers, which was really fun, because I just absolutely demolished them. Basically, there's no polite way of saying it. He couldn't see me, and I just popped out a unit a turn, smashed up an Armiger, and just kept going until there weren't any Armigers left. And it was all very sad and over very quickly. But CJ, who I played, was a really lovely lad. So I got a 3rd place as well, Davey. So I joined you in that. I've got my nice little Vigilant and Faithful 3rd place trophy, which was fun, from Tabletop Republic. But a friend of the show, John Scrivens, actually finished 2nd with his Orcs, finished above me, showed me how it was done. So well done again, John, for your placing. That was really cool.
Is that Scrivens of Team Wales?
That's Scrivo of Team Wales, the Team Wales. Yeah, exactly. A big deal in these parts.
And also, a big shout out to that store, by the way. It's a lovely store, right?
Oh, Tabletop Republic is so good. Yeah. They're just so nice. I love their events. I thought they'd actually done a really cool terrain setup where it was sort of GW style, but with a little bit of that UKTC little ruins going on. And they'd obviously designed it all themselves, clearly put lots of thought into it. And I think for making terrain and format of that scale work, I think they've done a great job, because they'd actually made the maps slightly bigger. So you had space to work with. So for guys like the Thousand Sun players, right, he could really actually exploit the space with the teleporting and stuff. It wasn't so claustrophobic that armies that need mobility and movement couldn't do stuff, which I thought was a good change. I think 1K actually works better at the scale they played it, which was 4x4. And yeah, really, really fun events. Always really enjoyed Tabletop Republic, and a really good time had. And I do like Flesh Tearers. It's not subtle. It's really not subtle. But free Inferno pistols on all your units these days for Blood Angels is pretty nuts. Top Blood Angel players not sold that they'll be any good, but I mean that just feels like a lot of melter shots for an army to just suddenly have, right?
Oh,
so
yeah,
we'll have to see. Have to see it. I certainly enjoyed it. I won't run the Plasma Inceptors again because they're 300 points now.
So the squad's gone up by 100, has it?
It went up by 100. Yeah, they put 10 points on each gun. Apparently, they said it was a mistake. Apparently, they were never meant to go down to 40 each, but who knows? Fortunately for me, plasma scepters are just stored away for another day anyway.
Yeah, I'm pretty glad for everyone else who wasn't going to use them. So
yeah, right. So that's our event hunting. We're going to just briefly run through some LVO reactions, and then we'll talk about our channel plans, and then that's us done, I think. So the LVO, this was good fun. I've never followed the LVO quite as devotedly as I did this weekend. It was quite fun. We had the whole chat buzzing. We were all following the games. We had a bit of a Discord watch party for a couple of the matches as well. And it was obviously a really interesting and engaging finale to that ITC season. What did you guys think of it?
Yeah, I think like last year I watched it a bit, and the year before, and that sort of thing. But as you say, this was like the first time we properly actively got engaged with it. And yeah, I think is because we're obviously interested and involved in the competitive scene. It's like the more you get into it, the more like names you know. So rather than just being like, oh, I've heard of Nick Nanavati, I wonder how he's getting on. We're like, oh, there's like 10 players here who I'm interested in like following their progress. Obviously, here in the UK, we had Vic VJ, who was current number one, so we were keen to see how he got on. David Gaylard, who was also in the hunt, and my personal hero, Mike Porter, who was still in it as well. Every
best
round,
personal stats of anyone in the world, right?
Yeah, exactly. So every round I was praying for Mike Porter to be on the stream, and as it kind of went through, obviously I watched Vic lose on in that game against Alex Fennell, which was I stayed up late to watch that, and that was very sad. Times I played Vic a couple of times, and he's like just such a nice opponent. He's such a nice
he's a wonderful guy. Yeah,
very gutted for him there. And then, it kind of heated up on day two. And then, we were all very interested to see how it went down. And finally, Mike Porter was on stream. He was playing into Tau. And I've had a bad time with Tau recently. And I watched it, and he put like 4 boats just out in the open turn one. He killed one plane and almost killed a second. And I'm like, all those boats are going to die. I don't understand what's going on here. I do this as well. Well, what's different? And then all the boats died. And then, Porter had put his player place terrain so he could basically run from one building in his deployment zone to the other the Tau building in the deployment zone, which obviously you can't do with UKTC terrain. So it's a bit different. No. And as I had to go out and as Brad Chester was like, well, I have to table you in 2 turns. So I went off and I had no idea what happened. And I think Paul sent a picture on the chat, and it was like, there were no Harleys left at all, basically. And I was like, oh no, this isn't looking good. But he still won like 90-40. How is he not there?
He's just a magic man, isn't he?
He just kept them to 0 primary the whole game, no bounties the whole game. So it was really cool to watch that. And then obviously he then played Jack in the semis, which was great because basically the winner almost certainly won.
This was it. It was playing off for the ITC. Yeah.
So that was a really good watch, and obviously there was a really interesting moment, turn 1, in terms of sportsmanship and like that sort of thing.
Hugely interesting.
And I think this is like for us who are or the middle, relatable, bang
average Joes, bang average, yeah.
I think we can learn a lot. So for those who don't know, Jack got first turn and sent in, the Death Company as you do.
It's the only strategy.
Yeah, and he charged his boats, and then Mike was like, well, there is a solitaire here, which you would probably have to charge as well. And he was like, oh, right, yeah. Okay, I'll charge the solitaire. So Mike goes, well, okay, well, I'll use the light stratagem to move the solitaire away.
Yeah.
And then in Mike's turn 1, he sends the solitaire off down to get behind enemy lines and assassinate to pick up the sanguinary ancient. At that point, when he did that light move away strat, on the chat, I was like, you can't do that. It's not a light model. It's like just a generic model. It doesn't get access to that strat. And then I think it lit up on the YouTube chat as well. And yeah, like all of a sudden it cut to the commentators, and because the judges were talking to the players about it and saying, like, we've caught this, how do you want to proceed? And Mike was like, well, that's fine, I'll just kill off the solitaire and I'll have my troop master up there instead. Like, there was no argument, there was no discussion. He was just like, yeah, fine, I'll just lose that model, then it's my fault.
Yeah.
And like
literally bins 110-point unit.
Yeah, and you're playing for, let's face it, a few £1,000, and
the prize, the top prize,
the ultimate prize, and he was just like, yeah, it's fine, it's whatever. And like, Jack's got a very interesting way of playing because he talks about the game to his opponent like constantly.
Yeah.
Well, if you do that, I don't care about that. And I guess in some ways it's massively like a head fuck because you're like, so I shouldn't do that. Like, for us, we'd be like,
yeah, there's an extent to which with that kind of chat you can be trying to sort of program or counter program the opponent, which it can,
it's hard to
sometimes can be a little bit.
It's like, is he doing it just because that's how he sees the game and that's what he genuinely believes, or is there any sort of manipulation? Like, hard to know, but you're not going to manipulate Mike Porter.
No, you're not.
He was, and he still felt in control. And I found it such an interesting game to watch because Porter had won the roll-off, so in the middle of the board, he got to put the first piece of terrain down. So obviously he put down a little crate because the Blood Angels, all they want to do is stick a big ruin right by that middle of that board, so he can put his whole army in there and the next turn charge, and that's just game. And so Mike had won that, but still it felt like Jack had a good positioning, and
his other two ruins were both really nice. They weren't proper objective defending, were they? It was more so that he could threaten all the others from them.
He set it up really well, and he you could just see, I think it was turn 3, he just decided to go all in and try and kill all the boats, and but he didn't know if it was the right move, and it could quite easily have bounced. And it didn't. And that was just game. And
the Hardy's got demeched in one big blow, and suddenly there's just Sangard on every objective. It really did come out of nowhere. It was suddenly just put the entire game to bed very aggressively.
Yeah, no, it was the right thing to do, and he read the game. And having played into that matchup so many times, it was. It's so hard to kill Sanguinary Guard with armor.
Oh, it's super hard. Yeah.
As Harlequins. The actual draw. Do you want to tell it? The other semi-final was also really interesting. The Naden Orcs Morosoli game.
Yeah, I mean, David, do you know what happened here, or I can take it if not? So this was another one where there was basically an accounting error in this case rather than a rules error. Early on in the game, a bit of primary was missed, and so really, really good close game between the two sides, Orcs and Demons. And then after the game had finished, it was discovered that a bit of primary had been missed. So actually, the Demons player should have won the game. Should have been up, and because the game had gone to time, the judges just wanted to just resolve it and move on. And I think they were essentially going to say, well, because it's dice down and everything else, it doesn't count. So there's no win. There's no win here for the Demons. But then the Orcs player, that was Sean Naden, was it? I think it was the Orcs player, who's obviously a brilliant player in his own right. Basically just said, well, let's just roll off, and whoever wins goes through to the next round. It was amazing, right? You got this whole top strata of players who are all so relaxed and so sort of calm about what happens next. And the sportsmanship seemed to flow very effortlessly and very, very readily. And as it was, Sean Naden won the roll-off, so he carried on going. And Harpster won the final anyway.
Absolutely demolished Sean. But I also think you have to comment on how Matt Morosoli went second into Orcs, who just swamped the board and spent the whole game in basically his deployment zone.
And still nearly dug it out.
To dig it out was like genuinely like really impressive.
Yeah, it's a sensational player, and I mean, one of the, if we're talking about more general interesting things from LVO, I think the high performances from Demons from both Morosoli and Nanavati was really interesting. That was the faction that I don't think anyone was calling would be in contention in the top places, and really strong showings from two Demons players, and it was Thousand Sun Flamers that made way, right? That was the Chaos Army that didn't turn up, right? So much noise about Thousand Sun Flamers going into the event, and they didn't make it. They fell down, but the Demons got through. So good on you, Demons players. It was nice to see.
I wonder if we would have seen that kind of let's roll off for it first round. Because I do think there's a lot to be said about what are these guys 10 games in? Maybe Sean wasn't, but Matt was.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's like an angle of, you know what, I've played enough games of 40k. Like, how many games of 40k do you need to play to go, let's just roll off for it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that if it was the first game of the tournament, potentially it might have been a different story. But
yeah,
I don't know. I still think I don't want to discount what they've done, right? Because I think what Sean did there was very chill. Like, yeah, let's just roll off for it.
Yeah, for sure.
So it is interesting though. I think a lot's to be said about, like, you've played the weekend of 40k, you are knackered, you've played against a really strong opponent, you've both beat each other black and blue. Like, you know, it's almost like a different game than that first. It's a different game in comparison to that first game.
No, for sure. Yeah, it was good. It was good games to see, and I think the overall meta at the end of Nephilim was fairly healthy, right?
Super balanced. Really good place.
You had a really nice spread of armies.
Really nice one Tyranid in the top 8. Just want to say
one Tyranid. Yep, one Tyranid.
A bit rough that they got the worst nerfs. Art of War's top 10 nerfed units included 4 Tyranids. No, I'm not saying anything.
No, Nid's got Newt, mate. Newt from Orbit, no doubt about it. Got treated absolutely horrifically.
Shame.
But yeah, it was a good spread. Nids, Tau, Emperor's Children, Demons. What else do we have? Orcs, Blood Angels, and Orc Blood Angels final. If someone said Orc Blood Angels final, right? No one's calling that pre-event, right? You know, you look at the players on it, and you're not surprised, right? You're not surprised if someone tells you Harpster Naden final. You're like, yeah, okay, fair enough, absolutely. But I think that was very interesting, and I was struck by it because I've got, you know, you're in WhatsApp chats that are endlessly talking all of the time, and when a big final happens and it's a bunch of armies from one faction, I can guarantee you that a ton of people I know are going to post that top 10, show you it, make a big song and dance, big fuss about how screwed the game is in a particular direction. Interesting, balanced, diverse top 10. Nothing. No noise. Like, no noise. No comment. No comment. We don't have it in us to just reflect when the game's good, and it has been good. Late Nephilim has been really good. Been in a really good place for a lot of armies, and we can only hope that it stays as good going into the next few months.
Absolutely, and also it sings the praises of list builders who go, right, the meta is X.
Yep.
I'm not going to take the best list. I want to take what beats the best list.
Yeah.
Which is,
and what I know really
relying
well.
on your skill to go and beat everyone else.
Yeah.
Incidentally, to also beating the best list, which is just like really admirable and top techers, I believe what kids say.
Definitely.
Yeah, maybe like 10 years ago, Davey.
All right.
Be nice. Great. I mean, I think that's the main thing. I think we're all a bit in love with the idea of trying to go to LVO at some stage. So I don't know whether that happens anytime soon, remains to be seen, but it would be nice to do.
Absolutely.
So we're just going to wrap up by talking about any channel plans, any ambitions we have going forwards, and then we'll call it a day. So Chris, where are we headed next? What's going to be happening?
Yeah, I mean, so I think at the beginning of the year we kind of set out a plan, didn't we, of sorts of things that we wanted to do. We want to be getting out weekly content. We want to be in a good place for when we get to 10th edition, as and when that comes out, and kind of really ride the wave. We want to set ourselves up to be a good team in the community, to be competing well, but at the same time, be a team that people enjoy playing against. I think you take January, we've got off to a good start. We've had lots of events.
Absolutely,
done a great job. Lots of players have been doing really well. We've got quite a few players who are in the top 3 for their specific faction. And then in terms of channel, we've been getting out content pretty frequently. Kind of moving forward, we're just going to be looking to vary our content more. Obviously, a lot of the time recently we've been doing a lot of podcasts and that sort of thing, but our roots were in battle reports. and we're going to be really getting more into more battle reports, and they're going to be really short ones, like 15 minutes, 20 minutes maybe, but they're still going to be focused on the tactical aspect of things and why the players are making the decision, and just a learning opportunity in the form of a battle report, really. And that's something we're really keen to kind of like push forward and stress, as well as various tactics videos and army videos and all those sorts of things, all the good stuff. We're just going to be a bit more active, really. So hopefully you guys will, as listeners, will enjoy that sort of thing. And what we'll do each week or each time we do a podcast is we'll tell you what content we've produced as well, and kind of how that goes. But other than that, we've got lots of tournaments booked. We've got the teams event coming up where we do love our teams. I think we're trying to take that a bit more seriously this time, so we're
definitely
preparing for that and that sort of thing. But yeah, I think it feels like at the moment we're doing well at the moment. It feels like we're building up a bit of a platform at the moment.
Momentum feels good, doesn't it?
We want all our lovely listeners and viewers and that sort of thing to kind of just get involved. So please do come and find us on the various pages. We have a Facebook page, which is just 6++ Gaming. All the links are below in the description on the link tree. But the Facebook page is where whenever we go to a tournament, we do a weekend preview where we've got Jeff Jefferson and Ken Kamara, and they chat about the tournament. They talk about this is just a written article, by the way, but we've got a cool logo or picture which Scrivo designed for us to look like Sky Sports News, and we talk all through our armies that we're taking and all that sort of thing. Build a bit of buzz for the event. Then over the event, we post how we're getting on in each round and anything going on there with various pictures. Our Facebook page is where we probably keep up all the content the most. We have Instagram, again, 6++ Gaming, where we share Meme Mondays. Davey is a meme master.
He is. He's the meme
Absolute
king.
Legend.
Don't tell at work. I definitely do that while I'm at work.
So and the memes are a mix of 40k ones and ones relevant to us, but they're pretty. And then we have a Work in Progress Wednesday where we share all our kind of like the work we're going, as well as just sharing our general kind of the different stuff that we're painting and working on, maybe talking about in our podcast at the same time. And then of course we have a Discord, and it seems like people are joining the Discord, and
it's getting noisy, isn't it? Starting to build up. Yeah,
absolutely. And so we hope to keep building that. You can post your questions for the podcast and just ask questions in general.
Please do.
There's a load of different channels. We are going to be taking the step into Age of Sigmar a monthly show where there you are. Look at that, bosh. There's a sneak preview for you. So there's 5 of us. We're going to do a Tale of 5 Wargamers series. There's 5 of us, and we're going to track our progress and try learn the game. Some of us coming from different places. Like Tom's already done a tournament. Like, he's a master of the game.
I love Age of Sigmar. I've chosen my army. I'm giving some subtle clues as to what that is in the background.
Nice. So we'll that'll be coming out at some point very early February, as soon as people film their bits and send them to me. And so that'll be cool. That'll be a monthly thing as well. So we're looking to branch out, I guess.
We'll probably be at some kind of Age of Sigmar event by the latter stages of the year, right? Which would be really good fun to do. And that'll be a good chance to get silly with the content. We've got a bunch of fun armies picked out, and we're really excited to get that in motion.
I have a better clue as to what army Tom is taking.
Yeah.
Oh no, that was. Oh, you were doing the same video. Sorry, my bad. I didn't know that was how that song started.
It starts, it's a slow burner.
Well, let's get the main bit, right? Let's get the main bit so people know.
I'm home, baby.
I mean, do we get demonetized for having copyright material?
Yeah, I'm sure we do.
We have now just lost the 5p this episode.
Yeah, it's 5p up the swan, Davey. Blind.
That's knocked out my wages, guys, as well. That's so annoying.
yeah, it's exciting times, isn't it? We've got lots of stuff planned. We're going to just keep building on this momentum, and thank you to everyone who keeps feeding back and getting involved and asking questions and all those kind of things, because it really helps to galvanise us and get us up and running.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think that's going to be us for this evening. It's time for us to stumble and fall asleep. That's what I'm going to do. That's definitely where I'm
going
at.
to go and watch the end of Mortal Kombat because
Are you actually nice?
I've not seen. So it's the new one, right?
I didn't know there was a new one.
One with Sub-Zero in it, who's the big bad, I think.
Okay.
And yeah, it's weird, but you know what? I'm digging it. I'm digging it.
Excellent.
Nice.
Excellent. Chris going to keep building shuriken, I reckon. Keep sticking shuriken catapults on things.
You know,
long way to go yet.
We've got day tomorrow. I mean, this
we do. We're at least some content is getting made tomorrow by me and Chris because we promised ourselves.
Yeah.
We are just hanging out. Oh, I absolutely haven't built the dinosaur that I need to build. Oh, that's fine. Maybe we just play smaller points, Chris. That'd be all right. I'll work it out.
Sounds good.
But, yeah, going to be really fun. I think we were going to do Drakari Custodes. I think was the
we're going to film Battle Report, Drakari versus Custodes.
Battle Report, see where those two are at now in Arcs of Omen.
Well, when a rock meets a hard place.
Yeah, I'm not. I'll be honest. I'm not optimistic for this tie, but I think it'll be really fun, and it'll be nice to have the Druks out. And Custodes are a sleeper. I feel like Custodes are going to come out real strong.
Didn't they win a big GT in?
They did. They absolutely did.
Australia.
Yeah, it was Liam Hackett won a GT. So yeah,
I think right. Yeah,
they'll be right back at it. I think, but we'll be interested to see how Chris gets on. So yeah, that'll be us. Stay well out there, and we will see you all again soon.
Bye.